The champagne glass slipped from Maya Chen's perfectly manicured fingers, shattering against the marble as she watched the security footage on her hidden phone. Her husband, the most feared man in Asia, lay broken at the bottom of a staircase, his legs twisted at an impossible angle. But Maya wasn't calling for help. She was texting, "It's done, he'll never walk again." What she didn't know was that someone else was watching, someone who had seen everything from the beginning, someone who had been collecting evidence for 6 months, waiting for this exact moment. Jasmine Porter, the invisible Black American waitress who served their breakfast every morning, stood in the shadows of the servants' hallway, her phone recording every word of Maya's celebration call with her co-conspirators. The dragon of Seoul was down, but he wasn't out. Not while Jasmine was still breathing. Before we dive into this incredible story of betrayal, courage, and unexpected devotion, can I just say, you need to smash that subscribe button for Novatail's TV right now. Seriously, Novatail's TV creates the most compelling, emotional, jaw-dropping stories you'll ever watch. Every upload is pure gold, the kind of content you'll binge for hours and still want more. Their storytelling is absolutely unmatched. Trust me, your future self will thank you for subscribing. Hit that button, turn on notifications, and let's get back to Jasmine's impossible mission to save a man who doesn't even know her name. 6 months earlier, Jasmine Porter had arrived in Seoul with $847 in her bank account, a degree in hospitality management from Howard University that hadn't landed her anything better than restaurant work, and a determination to make her study abroad experience count for something. The job at Azure Dragon, the most exclusive private dining establishment in Gangnam, had seemed like a miracle. The pay was extraordinary, $45 an hour plus tips that could double that. The clientele was Seoul's elite, tech moguls, entertainment executives, politicians, and according to whispered rumors among the staff, some of the most dangerous men in Asia. The catch, absolute discretion. What you saw at Azure Dragon stayed at Azure Dragon. The confidentiality agreement Jasmine signed was 30 pages long and included clauses about criminal prosecution for any breach. She'd signed without hesitation. She needed the money. Her mother's medical bills back in Atlanta weren't going to pay themselves, and her younger brother's college tuition was due in 3 months. Her first night, she'd been assigned to the Emperor's Room, a private dining space on the top floor that cost $10,000 just to reserve. The reservation that night was under the name Kang Enterprises. Keep your eyes down, your mouth shut, and refill glasses before they're empty, her supervisor, Mrs. Park, had instructed in accented English. Mr. Kang is our most important client, no mistakes. Jasmine nodded, straightened her uniform, and entered the room with a tray of the restaurant's signature appetizers. The man sitting at the head of the table had stolen her breath. Kang Min-jun was 42 years old, 6'2", with the kind of sharp, aristocratic features that belonged on magazine covers. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than Jasmine made in 6 months, his dark hair styled with casual perfection, a Patek Philippe watch glinting at his wrist. But it wasn't his appearance that had made Jasmine's hands tremble slightly as she set down plates. It was his presence. Min-jun radiated authority the way the sun radiated heat, effortlessly, overwhelmingly, impossibly to ignore. When he spoke, everyone at the table listened. When he smiled, which was rare, it felt like witnessing something dangerous and beautiful. And when his eyes had briefly met Jasmine's as she poured his wine, she'd felt the impact like a physical touch. "Thank you," he'd said in perfect English, his voice deep and slightly rough. "You're welcome, sir," she'd managed, keeping her expression professionally neutral even as her pulse raced. Over the following weeks, Jasmine learned more about Kang Min-jun through overheard conversations and staff gossip than any background check could have revealed. He was the CEO of Kang Enterprises, a conglomerate with interests in shipping, technology, real estate, and according to rumors that no one dared say too loudly, several less legal ventures. His legitimate businesses alone were worth billions. His underground empire was estimated to control 30% of Seoul's, and by extension, South Korea's organized operations. They called him the Dragon of Seoul, not to his face, never to his face, but in whispered conversations in back alleys and private rooms. He was respected, feared, and according to every piece of evidence Jasmine could gather, absolutely ruthless with anyone who crossed him. He was also, she'd learned with growing concern, recently engaged. The announcement had come during Jasmine's second month at Azure Dragon. Minjun had hosted a private dinner for 200 guests, Seoul's elite mixing with faces Jasmine recognized from international news. The woman at his side had been breathtaking. Maya Chen was 34, stunningly beautiful with the kind of polished elegance that came from generations of wealth and privilege. Her family owned one of Taiwan's largest shipping companies. Her education included degrees from Oxford and Harvard Business School. Her smile was perfect, practiced, and according to Jasmine's instincts, completely fake. Jasmine had served their engagement dinner, watching as Seoul's power players congratulated the couple. As Maya played the role of devoted fiancé with Oscar-worthy skill, as Minjun looked at his future wife with something that wasn't quite love but might have been satisfaction. A successful merger, Jasmine had thought, two powerful families uniting for mutual benefit. But something felt wrong. She couldn't have explained it, not rationally, not with evidence. But Jasmine had always trusted her instincts, the same instincts that had warned her about her ex-boyfriend's infidelity 6 months before she'd found proof, the same instincts that had told her not to get on that flight from Atlanta that had later been delayed 12 hours due to mechanical issues. Her grandmother had called it the knowing, a gift that ran in their family, the ability to sense things before they happened. And Jasmine's knowing was screaming that Maya Chen was dangerous. She'd started paying closer attention, noting small things, how Maya's smile never reached her eyes when she looked at Minjun, how she touched him with calculated precision in public, but pulled away the moment she thought no one was watching, how she took frequent phone calls that made her step away from the table, her voice dropping to urgent whispers. 3 months into the engagement, Jasmine had been clearing plates from a private dinner when she'd overheard a conversation that changed everything. Maya had stepped onto the balcony, thinking she was alone. Jasmine had been in the adjacent service corridor, separated by only a decorative screen. "The wedding is in 6 weeks," Maya had said in Mandarin, which she didn't know Jasmine understood. "Thank you, Howard University language requirements. After that, we proceed with phase 2. Yes, I have access to his schedule, his security protocols, his business accounts. Of course I can make it look natural. An accident. Clean. The Dragon of Seoul will fall and Kang Enterprises will be ours." Jasmine's blood had run cold. She stood frozen behind that screen, plate still in her hands, as Maya continued her conversation with someone Jasmine now understood was definitely not a wedding planner. "He trusts me completely. The fool actually thinks I love him. 6 weeks. Then the real work begins." When Maya had returned inside, Jasmine had been gone, her mind racing with the impossible decision she now faced. Warn a man who barely knew she existed about a plot she couldn't prove, or stay silent and watch him be destroyed. The smart choice was obvious. Keep her head down, do her job, don't get involved in the deadly politics of people who existed in a different stratosphere. But Jasmine had never been good at making smart choices when someone's life was at stake. The next day, she requested a private meeting with Mrs. Park. "I need to speak with Mr. Kang," Jasmine had said. "It's urgent. It's about his fiancée." Mrs. Park's expression had gone ice cold. "You will do no such thing, whatever you think you know." "She's planning to kill him," Jasmine had interrupted, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "After the wedding, I overheard her on the phone. She's not who she claims to be." For a long moment, Mrs. Park had simply stared at her. Then, "Miss Porter, I'm going to give you some advice. Mr. Kang is a very dangerous man to lie about or to. If you make accusations against his fiancée without proof, he will destroy you. Do you understand? Not fire you, destroy you." "I'm not lying." "Do you have proof? Recordings? Documents? anything beyond an overheard phone conversation in a language you shouldn't understand. Jasmine had hesitated. No, but... Then you have nothing, and you will keep your mouth shut if you value your life. Mrs. Park had leaned forward. Maya Chen comes from one of the most powerful families in Asia. Her engagement to Mr. Kang represents a merger worth billions. You are a waitress he's never spoken to beyond thanking you for wine. Who do you think he'll believe? The answer was obvious and devastating. Now, Mrs. Park had continued, her voice softening slightly, if you're truly concerned, if you truly believe something is wrong, then do what smart people do. Gather evidence. Real evidence. But do it quietly. And if you find nothing, you drop this and never speak of it again. Understood. Jasmine had understood. She'd also understood something else. If she was going to save Min Jun's life, she was going to have to do it herself. The wedding had been spectacular. A 3-day affair at a luxury resort on Jeju Island that reportedly cost $8 million. Jasmine hadn't attended, obviously. She'd remained in Seoul, working her usual shifts, watching news coverage of the ceremony on television during her breaks. Maya had looked like a fairy tale princess in her custom Vera Wang gown. Min Jun had looked powerful and composed in his Tom Ford tuxedo. They'd exchanged vows in front of 500 guests, sealing the merger of 2 dynasties. And Jasmine had watched it all, her stomach churning with the knowledge of what was coming. She'd spent the 3 months since overhearing that phone call preparing. She'd bought a small, high-quality recording device, the kind journalists used for covert interviews. She'd taught herself the basics of digital audio equipment. She'd studied Maya's patterns, her phone calls, her meetings. She'd started collecting evidence. It hadn't been easy. Jasmine's position as a waitress gave her access to Azure Dragon, but not to the couple's private life. She'd had to be creative, patient, and willing to take risks that terrified her. She'd learned to read lips, picking up fragments of Maya's phone conversations. She'd befriended other staff members who worked at venues the couple frequented, creating a network of people who could observe and report without knowing why. She'd even, in one desperate moment, followed Maya through Seoul's streets for 6 hours, documenting a meeting with 3 men who definitely weren't on any society registry. The evidence had accumulated slowly. Recordings of suspicious phone calls, photographs of Maya meeting with known rivals of Kang Enterprises, financial records that Jasmine had obtained through methods she preferred not to examine too closely. But she'd had no way to present any of it to Min Jun, no way to make him listen to accusations against his new wife, from a woman he'd never had a real conversation with. So Jasmine had done the only thing she could. She'd watched, she'd waited, and she'd prepared to act when the moment came. The moment came on a rainy Tuesday in November, 4 months after the wedding. Jasmine had been setting up for dinner service when one of the other waitresses, Soo-jin, had pulled her aside with an urgent whisper. "Did you hear? Mr. Kang had an accident. He's in the hospital." Jasmine's blood had turned to ice. What kind of accident? Fell down the stairs at his home, multiple injuries. They're saying, Soo-jin hesitated, they're saying he might not walk again. The world had tilted. Jasmine had gripped the table for support, her mind racing. This was it. Phase 2, Maya's plan in action. Except, according to Soo-jin's gossipy details gathered from the staff network, Maya had been with Min Jun when he fell. Had been the one to call for help. Had ridden in the ambulance crying, the perfect devastated wife. But Jasmine knew better. That evening, she'd done something reckless. She'd gone to the hospital. She'd had no plan beyond getting inside, beyond somehow confirming that this wasn't just an accident. She'd worn her Azure Dragon uniform, hoping it might grant her access to the VIP floor where Min Jun was reportedly being treated. It had worked better than she'd expected. The staff had assumed she was delivering something from the restaurant, Mr. Kang's favorite establishment, sending well wishes, perhaps. They directed her to the private wing without question. Jasmine had found Maya in the hallway outside Min Jun's room, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice low and urgent. Jasmine had ducked into a supply closet, leaving the door cracked just enough to hear. It worked perfectly, Maya had been saying in Mandarin. The fall, the injuries, it's all playing out exactly as planned. No, he's not dead yet, but he's paralyzed. Can't walk. Can't fight back. Give me 2 weeks to access the business accounts, transfer what we need, and then we finish it. An infection, maybe. Something that looks natural in a hospital setting. Yes, I'll make sure there are no witnesses. Jasmine had recorded every word. She'd also made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to let Maya finish her plan. Whatever it took, whatever risks she had to take, Jasmine was going to protect Kang Minjun, even if he never knew her name. Minjun had regained consciousness to a world of pain and impossible reality. The doctors explained his condition with gentle professionalism. Vertebral fracture at the L1 level, severe spinal cord damage, surgical intervention successful in stabilizing the injury, but unable to reverse the paralysis. He would never walk again. The dragon of Seoul, the man who had built an empire on strength and fear, had been reduced to a hospital bed and a future in a wheelchair. The irony was almost poetic. Maya played her role perfectly. She was there every day, holding his hand, managing visitors, coordinating with doctors. The picture of a devoted wife standing by her husband in his darkest hour. Minjun, foggy from pain medication and shock, accepted her presence without question. What reason did he have to doubt her? She was his wife, his partner in building a dynasty. But something nagged at him, a hazy memory of the moment before his fall. He'd been descending the main staircase of their home. Maya had been behind him, saying something about needing to discuss business matters. And then the memory fractured there. A push, a trip, his own clumsiness on stairs he descended 1,000 times. Don't try to remember, Maya had soothed when he'd mentioned the gap in his recollection. The doctor said head trauma can cause temporary amnesia. Just focus on healing. So he had. He'd undergone surgeries, started physical therapy for his upper body, learned to navigate a world that was no longer built for him. His business associates came to visit, their expressions carefully neutral, but their eyes betraying thoughts of weakness, of opportunity, of a power vacuum waiting to be filled. Minjun had spent 2 decades building an empire through intelligence, ruthlessness, and a reputation for being untouchable. Now he was literally confined to a chair, dependent on others for basic tasks, vulnerable in ways that made his enemies salivate. He'd had to make changes immediately. Restructure his security team, limit who had access to him, assume everyone was a potential threat. Everyone except Maya, of course. His wife, his partner, his ally. It never occurred to him that his greatest threat was the woman who helped him into bed each night. Jasmine, meanwhile, had continued her mission with increased urgency. She'd learned that Minjun would be discharged from the hospital in 2 weeks, would return home with round-the-clock medical care and enhanced security. She'd also learned, through her growing network of informants, that Maya had been making moves. Business accounts were being quietly shifted. Assets were being transferred to shell companies. Legal documents were being prepared that would give Maya full control of Kang Enterprises in the event of Minjun's death. Everything was being positioned for the final phase. Jasmine needed to act. But how did you protect a man who was surrounded by professional security, living in a mansion you had no access to, and trusting a woman who was planning his murder? The answer came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Park had requested to see Jasmine in her office, a summons that sent fear through her. Has she been found out? Had Maya discovered her investigation? But when Jasmine entered, Mrs. Park's expression was grim and sympathetic, not angry. I owe you an apology, the older woman had said without preamble. You were right about Maya Chen. Jasmine's heart had jumped. You believe me? I've been watching, listening. I have my own network, Miss Porter, my own ways of gathering information. Mrs. Park had leaned forward. Maya Chen isn't who she claims to be. Her family's shipping company has been on the verge of bankruptcy for 3 years. She's being backed by a consortium of Minjun's rivals, specifically the Zhang family, who have been trying to take over Kang Enterprises for a decade. She's a corporate spy, Jasmine had breathed. More than that, She's an assassin. The plan is to marry in, gain access, destroy him, and take over his empire. You stumbled onto something much bigger than you realized. We have to warn him. With what evidence? Mrs. Park interrupted. Your recordings are inadmissible in court. My intelligence is all circumstantial. Maya has spent months building her cover, making herself indispensable to Min Jun during his recovery. If we go to him now, she'll deny everything and will look like conspirators trying to destroy his marriage. So what do we do? Mrs. Park smiled slightly. We get you inside the house. The plan was audacious and terrifying. Azure Dragon's owner, Mr. Lee, was a longtime friend of the Kang family. He would recommend Jasmine as private staff for Min Jun's recovery, someone trained in hospitality service who could manage his meals, coordinate his care, and handle the household details that Maya was supposedly too grief-stricken to deal with. It's the perfect cover, Mrs. Park had explained. You'll be in the house daily. You'll have access to observe Maya to gather real evidence to be there when she makes her final move. And if she recognizes me from the restaurant. She won't. You've served her dozens of times and she's never looked at you directly. Not once. You're invisible to people like Maya Chen. The words had stung, but Jasmine knew they were true. She'd built her career on being invisible, on being the perfect server who anticipated needs without being noticed. Now that invisibility would be her greatest asset. 3 days later, Jasmine had begun work at the Kang residence. The house was overwhelming, a modern architectural masterpiece in Gangnam worth at least $40 million. 30,000 square feet of glass, steel, and imported materials spread across grounds that felt more like a private park than a residential property. Min Jun's wing had been modified for accessibility. Ramps, widened doorways, a hospital-grade bed, equipment for physical therapy. Everything he needed to adjust to his new reality. Maya had greeted Jasmine with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You come highly recommended. Mr. Lee says you're exceptional at anticipating needs. I do my best, Mrs. Kang, Jasmine had replied with appropriate deference. My husband requires very specific care. Strict schedules, particular preferences. Can you handle that? Of course. Good. Maya's gaze had swept over Jasmine dismissively. The previous girl couldn't cope with the demands. I expect better from you. The previous girl had actually quit after one day, claiming the household felt oppressive. Jasmine understood now what she'd meant. There was something toxic in the air here, something wrong beneath the polished surfaces. Her first meeting with Min Jun had been carefully controlled by Maya, who'd hovered during the introduction like a possessive guard. This is Jasmine Porter, Maya had said. She'll be managing your daily care coordination. Min Jun had looked up from his wheelchair, and Jasmine had felt that same electric impact as the first time their eyes met at Azure Dragon. But there was no recognition. He'd served him dozens of times, poured his wine, cleared his plates, and he had no idea who she was. Welcome, Miss Porter, he'd said formally. I appreciate your service. Thank you, sir. I'm honored to help. That had been 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks of carefully managed routines, of watching Maya manipulate Min Jun with surgical precision, of collecting evidence while pretending to be nothing more than efficient staff. Jasmine had documented everything. Maya's phone calls, she'd planted listening devices in 3 rooms, her meetings with suspicious visitors, photographed through windows, her computer activity, recorded via software Jasmine had installed during a brief moment alone in Maya's office. The evidence was building into an undeniable picture of conspiracy and planned murder. But it still wasn't enough, because without Min Jun believing her, without him seeing Maya's betrayal with his own eyes, the evidence was just data. And time was running out. The attempt came on a rainy Thursday evening in December. Maya had suggested a drive, something she'd been doing more frequently, taking Min Jun out of the house for fresh air and normalcy. They'd leave in the specially modified Mercedes van, just the 2 of them, giving the security team the night off. Jasmine's instincts had screamed warnings. It's just a drive, Minjun had said when she'd expressed concern about the weather. Maya thinks it will be good for my mental state. I appreciate your concern, Miss Porter, but I'm fine. But Jasmine had seen Maya's face when she thought no one was looking, had seen the cold calculation, the anticipation of something coming. So when the van pulled out of the estate, Jasmine did something reckless. She followed. She'd borrowed a car from Sujin, her friend from Azure Dragon. She'd equipped herself with her recording devices, a burner phone, and a knot of fear in her stomach that told her tonight was going to change everything. The van had headed toward Namsan, a mountain area with winding roads and few witnesses. Jasmine had kept her distance, following the taillights through rain that was quickly becoming a downpour. 20 minutes into the drive, the van had pulled over at a scenic overlook. Jasmine had parked farther back, using binoculars to watch as Maya got out of the driver's seat, and simply walked away. She'd pulled out her phone, made a brief call, and then headed toward a waiting car that materialized from the darkness. She'd gotten in without looking back, leaving her paralyzed husband alone in a disabled van on a mountain road in a rainstorm. Jasmine's blood had turned to ice as she understood. This was it. The final phase. Maya had positioned Minjun perfectly, helpless, isolated, waiting for whoever was coming to finish what the accident had started. Jasmine had moved without thinking. She'd driven to the van, parked beside it, and ran through the rain to the driver's side door. Minjun had been in the passenger seat, his expression shifting from surprise to confusion as he'd recognized her. "Miss Porter, what are you?" "We need to go, now." Jasmine had wrenched open the side door, hitting the button that extended the wheelchair ramp. "Sir, I know this sounds insane, but your wife just left you here. There are people coming. We have maybe 5 minutes." "What are you talking about?" "Please." Jasmine had looked at him with desperate urgency. "I will explain everything, I will show you everything, but right now we need to leave. Please trust me." Something in her voice, or maybe his own suppressed instincts, had made Minjun nod. "Get me in your car." The transfer had been awkward and rushed. Minjun was heavy, and Jasmine's strength had its limits. But fear provided adrenaline, and within 90 seconds she'd gotten him into her passenger seat, his wheelchair folded in the back. They'd pulled away, just as 2 black SUVs had appeared on the road behind them. "Drive," Minjun had commanded, his voice sharp and focused. "Take the service road on the right, faster." Jasmine had obeyed, her hands shaking on the wheel as she'd navigated the narrow road. Behind them, the SUVs had turned to follow. "They're following us," Jasmine had said unnecessarily. "I can see that." Minjun had pulled out his phone, making rapid calls. "This is Kang. I need extraction at Namsan Service Road Beta. Hostile pursuit. Yes, 2 vehicles. I don't care how, just get here. 5 minutes." He'd ended the call and looked at Jasmine. "You know who I am, what I really am." "Yes, sir." "And you still chose to save me." "Yes, sir." "Why?" The question had hung between them as Jasmine had maneuvered through hairpin turns, the SUVs gaining. "Because your wife is trying to kill you," Jasmine had said. "Has been planning it since before you married her. She caused your fall, she's stolen from your accounts, and tonight was supposed to be the end. I have evidence, recordings, proof of everything. But I couldn't get you to believe me, so I've been collecting evidence and waiting." "The waitress," Minjun had interrupted, recognition finally dawning. "Azure Dragon, you served us dozens of times." "Yes, sir." "I never noticed you." "Most people don't." "That was a mistake." His voice had been soft but intense. "One I intend to correct." The conversation had been interrupted by gunfire. The SUVs had pulled alongside them, and someone had opened fire. Jasmine had screamed, swerving wildly, a bullet spiderwebbing the rear window. "Keep driving," Minjun had commanded, his voice eerily calm. He'd pulled a weapon from somewhere. Apparently he'd been armed even during a casual drive, and returned fire through the window with precision that spoke to decades of experience. The next 5 minutes had been pure chaos. High-speed pursuit through mountain roads, gunfire, Jasmine's car taking hits but holding together through sheer determination. And then, salvation. 4 black Mercedes sedans had appeared, boxing in the SUVs, forcing them off the road. Minjun's security team finally arrived. The fight that followed had been brief and brutal. When it ended, the men from the SUVs were either dead or restrained, and Minjun's team was securing the scene with professional efficiency. Minjun's head of security, a stoic man named Kim, had approached the car. "Sir, are you injured?" "No, thanks to Miss Porter." Minjun had looked at Jasmine, who was shaking so hard she could barely hold the steering wheel. "She saved my life, multiple times tonight, apparently." "Sir, about your wife." "I know." Minjun's voice had turned ice cold. "Bring her in, and get me copies of whatever evidence Miss Porter has collected. I want to know everything." The confrontation took place in Minjun's home office, the one room in the house that Maya had never been given access to. Jasmine stood by the wall, her laptop open, her evidence queued and ready. Mrs. Park was there too, having been summoned as a witness. Minjun sat behind his desk in his wheelchair, his expression carved from stone. And Maya was brought in by security, her face a mask of confusion and concern. "Minjun, what's going on? Are you all right? They said there was an attack." "Sit down," Minjun commanded, his voice cutting through her performance. Maya sat, her eyes darting between her husband and Jasmine. "Who is this woman? Why is she?" "Her name is Jasmine Porter. She's been working in our household for 6 weeks." Minjun's gaze never left Maya's face. "Before that, she worked at Azure Dragon. She served us dozens of times. You never noticed her." Understanding flickered in Maya's eyes, quickly suppressed. "I don't understand what this is about." "This is about you trying to kill me, about a conspiracy that started before we married, about you being a spy for the Zhang family." Minjun's voice was deadly quiet. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" "That's insane. I love you." "Miss Porter, play the recordings." Jasmine had cued them in chronological order. 6 months of evidence, starting with the phone call she'd overheard at Azure Dragon before the wedding, progressing through months of calls discussing the accident, the asset transfers, the final plan for tonight. Maya's voice, captured in perfect clarity, planning everything. As the recordings played, Maya's expression transformed from shock to fury to, finally, cold calculation. "You've been spying on me," she said to Jasmine when the final recording ended. "You planted bugs in my home, tracked me, violated my privacy." "You tried to murder my husband," Jasmine replied evenly. "I think that trumps privacy concerns." "This isn't legal evidence." "It doesn't need to be," Minjun interrupted. "We're not in a courtroom, Maya. We're in my house, and you're about to explain why I shouldn't have you killed right here, right now." The threat hung in the air, heavy and real. Maya's composure cracked completely. "You can't. You need me. The merger with my family." "Your family doesn't exist, not as you presented them." Minjun gestured to a folder on his desk. "I had them investigated after tonight. Your father's shipping company is a front for the Zhang consortium. You're not an heiress. You're a trained operative who was planted in my life to destroy me." "I do love you." "Stop lying." The words came out like a whip crack. "You're done lying to me." For a long moment, Maya just looked at him. Then she laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Fine, yes, it was all a lie. The engagement, the wedding, the devoted wife act, all of it." She leaned forward. "You want to know the truth? The Zhang family paid me $5 million to marry you and destroy you. They've been trying to take over Kang Enterprises for a decade, and you were too strong, too protected. So they decided to destroy you from the inside. And you agreed to become a murderer for $5 million. I agreed to become rich and powerful by taking down a crime lord who's destroyed countless lives." Maya's eyes flashed. "Don't pretend you're some innocent victim. Minjun, how many people have you killed? How many lives have you ruined? I was just doing to you what you've done to others." "I've never pretended to be something I'm not," Minjun said quietly. "But you wore a wedding dress and vowed to love me while planning my death. That's a special kind of evil. Maya shrugged. Call it what you want. I almost succeeded. Would have if not for your lovesick waitress over there. She shot a venomous look at Jasmine. What's your story? In love with the boss, playing hero. I'm just someone who doesn't let innocent people be murdered, Jasmine replied. Innocent, Maya laughed again. He's the dragon of Seoul. He's anything but. He didn't deserve what you did. Jasmine's voice was firm. Whatever else he is, whatever he's done, you took vows, you made him trust you, and you used that trust to destroy him. That's unforgivable. Minjun looked at Jasmine then, really looked at her, and something passed between them. Gratitude, respect, and something deeper that made Jasmine's breath catch. What happens now? Maya asked, her bravado fading as reality set in. Now, Minjun said, you have two choices. Option 1, you cooperate fully. You testify against the Zhang family, provide evidence of their conspiracy, and help me dismantle their entire operation. In return, I let you live. You'll go to prison for fraud and attempted murder, but you'll live. And option 2. Minjun's smile was cold. There is no option 2. The legal and criminal consequences unfolded over the next 3 months. Maya, faced with the reality of her situation, had cooperated. Her testimony, combined with Jasmine's evidence and Minjun's own investigation, had exposed the Zhang family's conspiracy. Arrests were made across 3 countries. A criminal empire was dismantled. Maya was sentenced to 18 years in prison. The judge had been particularly unimpressed by her justification that she was destroying a criminal. You're not a vigilante, the judge had said. You're a calculating conspirator who used marriage vows as a weapon. The court finds no redemption in your actions. The scandal had rocked Seoul's business world. Kang Enterprises' stock had initially plummeted, then soared when investors realized that Minjun was not only alive, but had orchestrated one of the most spectacular corporate takedowns in Asian history. The Dragon of Seoul, it turned out, was very much still a threat, wheelchair or not. But it was the personal aftermath that changed Jasmine's life. Minjun had requested a private meeting with her the day after Maya's sentencing. They'd sat in his office, him behind his desk, her in a chair across from him, and for a long moment he just looked at her. I owe you my life, he said finally, multiple times over. You don't owe me anything, sir. I did what was right. You did what was impossible. Minjun had leaned forward. You saw something was wrong before anyone else did. You collected evidence when you had every reason to walk away. You followed me into danger when you could have stayed safe. And you've asked for nothing in return. I told you, I don't let innocent people be murdered. I'm not innocent, Jasmine. The use of her first name had sent a jolt through her. Let's not pretend otherwise. I'm exactly what Maya said. A crime lord who's destroyed lives and broken laws. You know that. Yet you still saved me. Everyone deserves not to be murdered by their spouse, Jasmine had replied. Even crime lords. Minjun laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. You're extraordinary, you know that. I'm just a waitress who got caught up in something bigger than herself. No, his voice had been firm. You're brilliant, brave, resourceful, and possess more integrity in your little finger than most people have in their entire body. And I was blind not to see you for 8 months. You had no reason to notice me. That's my failure, not yours. He'd paused. I want to offer you something, not as payment. You can't be paid for saving someone's life, but as an opportunity. Sir, I need someone I can trust. Someone who's proven their loyalty not through obligation, but through choice. Someone who sees things others miss and acts when others freeze. Minjun had held her gaze. I'm offering you a position as my personal security consultant. 7 figures salary, full benefits, and the authority to question anything, including me, if you see something wrong. Jasmine had been speechless. I'm also, he'd continued, his voice softer, hoping you'll let me get to know you. The real you, beyond the professional competence and the heroics. Because I've realized something. I spent 8 months not seeing you, and I don't want to spend another day making that mistake. Mr. Kang. Minjun, he'd corrected. Please. After everything, I think we're past formalities. Minjun, Jasmine had said, testing his name. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not qualified to. You're more qualified than anyone I've ever met. You infiltrated a conspiracy, gathered evidence that stood up in court, and saved my life while armed men were shooting at us. I think that makes you pretty qualified. But I'm not Korean. I don't understand the business culture here. I don't have security training. You have something better. Instincts, intelligence, and unshakable integrity. Everything else can be learned. He smiled. Say yes, Jasmine, please. Let me make up for 8 months of blindness. She'd looked at him, this powerful, dangerous man who was offering her more than a job, who was offering her trust and respect and maybe something more. Yes, she'd said. I'll say yes. The Azure Dragon was hosting a private event, the kind that required security screenings and confidentiality agreements just to attend. Jasmine stood in the Emperor's room, but this time not as a waitress. She wore a designer dress that Minjun had insisted on buying her, her hair styled professionally, diamond earrings, also his gift, catching the light. She was here as his partner, in business and increasingly in everything else. Their relationship had developed slowly over the past 6 months. Minjun had kept his promise to get to know her, real conversations about her life, her family, her dreams deferred when she'd become a waitress instead of pursuing her hospitality management career. He'd met her mother, had paid off all her medical bills without asking. She'd been furious until he'd pointed out that she'd saved his life, so paying her mother's cancer treatments was the least he could do. He'd sent her brother a scholarship check for his remaining college tuition. He'd shown her sides of himself that few people saw. The man who donated millions to children's hospitals anonymously, who'd built secret schools in poor neighborhoods, who used his criminal empire to protect vulnerable communities as often as he exploited them. He wasn't a good man. Jasmine had accepted that, but he was trying to be better, and he was letting her be part of that journey. You're thinking loudly, Minjun's voice came from beside her. He'd mastered his wheelchair with the same efficiency he brought to everything, and had actually gained upper body strength that made him more formidable, not less. Just remembering the first time I served you in this room, Jasmine admitted. How different everything was. You knew my wine preference before I did, Minjun recalled. I remember thinking there was something unusual about you, but I couldn't identify what. The fact that I was a human being with thoughts, Jasmine teased. The fact that you saw everything and revealed nothing. You were the perfect invisible witness. He took her hand. Until you chose not to be invisible anymore. You're being sentimental. I'm grateful there's a difference. Minjun pulled her closer. I was dead, Jasmine. Maya's plan would have worked, but you saw what no one else saw and you cared enough to act. That's the definition of extraordinary. I just didn't want to watch someone die when I could prevent it. Most people would have walked away. You ran toward danger. He paused. I love you for that, among other things. The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time he'd said them. Minjun. You don't have to say it back. I just wanted you to know. His eyes held hers. You saved my life. You transformed my life. And somewhere in all of that, I fell in love with you. Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. I love you too. Have for a while, actually, since it's somewhere between the shooting and the trial, I think. Not before. I'm wounded. I thought my roguish charm during the car chase. You were giving orders while people shot at us. That's not charming, that's terrifying. But you love me anyway. Against my better judgment, yes. They kissed then, a gentle touch that held promise and future, and the strange journey that had brought them together. When they broke apart, Minjun pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. Before you panic, he said, seeing Jasmine's expression, this isn't a wedding ring. I'm learning from Maya's mistakes, no rushed marriages for us. Then what is it? He opened the box, revealing a necklace, a delicate silver chain with a small dragon pendant. A promise that I see you, that I value you, that I'm never making the mistake of not noticing you again. It's beautiful. Not as beautiful as you. He fastened it around her neck. My guardian, my savior, my love. Those are high expectations to live up to, Jasmine said, touching the pendant. You've already exceeded them. They stood together at the window, looking out over Seoul's glittering skyline, a city that had tried to destroy Minjun and had instead witnessed his resurrection. A city that had brought Jasmine to her lowest point and then given her everything. Do you regret it? Minjun asked. Giving up your quiet life for all of this chaos? Jasmine thought about it seriously. 6 months ago, she'd been a waitress living paycheck to paycheck. Now she was a security consultant making more money than her father ever had, in a relationship with one of Asia's most powerful men, and somehow part of a world she'd never imagined entering. It was dangerous. It was unconventional. It was complicated in ways that kept her up at night. It was also the most alive she'd ever felt. No regrets, she said finally. You. Only that I didn't see you sooner. He kissed her temple. But I see you now, and I'm never looking away again. In the reflection of the window, Jasmine could see Mrs. Park watching from across the room, a satisfied smile on her face. She raised her glass slightly, a toast to the waitress who became something more. Jasmine smiled back, then turned to Minjun. Dance with me. I can't exactly dance anymore, he pointed out. Then we'll redefine what dancing means. She took his hands, like we're redefining everything else. They moved together in the space between tables, Minjun's chair navigating with practiced ease, Jasmine's steps matching his rhythm. It wasn't traditional dancing, but it was theirs. And that was enough. If you absolutely loved this incredible story of courage, devotion, and love against impossible odds, then you need to show some love right now. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me which moment had you on the edge of your seat, and for the love of storytelling, subscribe to Novatails TV. I cannot stress this enough. Novatails TV is hands down the best storytelling channel out there. Every single upload is crafted with such incredible attention to detail, such emotional depth, such compelling characters that you'll be binge-watching for hours. The quality, the creativity, the sheer talent, it's unmatched. Your future self will thank you for subscribing because you're about to discover content that's absolutely addictive in the best way possible. Hit that subscribe button right now, turn on those notifications, and join the Novatails TV family. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single story. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next incredible tale.